What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to be doing a super deep dive comparison on these two guitars here. They're both Schecters, and they have a lot of similar features, but they're not exactly the same. I paid for both of these guitars, so this is all my own money. No one's paying me to do this. I wish, but it's all good. I'm just doing this for fun because I enjoy this kind of stuff. But yeah, so I'll be going through these in super great, strenuous details, telling you all about the specs and kind of my feelings on these guitars and what makes them or may break them depending on you as a player. So one other thing to note is I got a new camera, so I'm testing that out. So if it doesn't look good or if there's weird things about it, I'm still trying to figure this out, so just bear with me. And yeah, thanks for watching. So the two guitars here I have is on my right is the Schecter Sun Valley Super Shredder. It's the FR-S, and this is in the matte black. And in my left hand here is the Schecter Reaper-6 FR-S in the satin charcoal burst. So I'm just going to kind of be doing a spec comparison and kind of going through all that stuff and price, and then a little bit of a playing at the end. I'll give you a little sound bite of each of them, and that way I know sound's pretty crucial with these guitars. So seeing what you think, what's worth it and what's not. I would love to hear your comments down below. And yeah, let's get into it. So on the left here, we have the Reaper, which it retails for $1,199 US. So it's roughly $1,200. And on the right is the Sun Valley Super Shredder, which this color retails for $899, but it can actually go up from there if you want to get the more fancy, quote-unquote bowling alley looking ones. I think they look sick. They call them the Rain. So there's like green, blue, and red Rain. I wanted to get one of those guitars for this video, or the birch green, because I think the birch green looks super sweet. It kind of matches the Ibanez back there, but all good. I came across these guitars secondhand, so they're not new, so I'm not doing a brand new comparison. I'm only comparing specs and what I have here, which these are still fully stock guitars. Nothing's been modified on them yet. Getting into the specs on these guitars, they do have quite a bit of differences in terms of just general looks if you were to hang them on a wall. But they're pretty much the same guitar in quite a bit of ways. They both have sustainiacs. They're both 24 frets. They both have Floyd Rose systems in them, and they're both made by Schecter, so they have very similar finish and quality feel to them. The Reaper here has a flush neck, so there's actually no bolt on. It's just straight into it and mounted in there directly. And then the Sun Valley Super Shredder has a bolt on neck with a contoured grip, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, heel. So it's kind of interesting because with this you get that nice like curve right there, and then it actually goes inwards towards the neck just a little bit. So you really don't feel it whenever you're up here, and in my opinion it's kind of nice. It doesn't feel like a bolt-on, which is cool. So, but this one super doesn't feel like a bolt-on, you know what I mean? Next is the neck shape. The Reaper has a ultra thin C, and the Sun Valley Super Shredder is just a thin C. And like, I don't know if you can tell the difference. It's like, it does feel different side by side, but when picking them up and playing them back to back, I didn't notice a huge difference. This one kind of feels like maybe the Wizard Thin on Ibanez necks, if you're familiar with those, but it's really not a huge difference. And then it gets thicker and chunkier down here, and this one's pretty consistent throughout the neck. So yeah, both have a 14-inch radius fretboard. Both have 24 frets, like I mentioned earlier. Both are 25.5 inch scale length. The nut widths I found were different, but like by marginal tiny differences. So the Reaper here is 1.653 inches, and the Sun Valley Super Shredder is 1.625 inches. So a tiny, tiny difference. And then once we're going through with the necks here, we get down to the frets, and these, it was hard to find information on the frets, what size these are, and these feel like just normal jumbo. I don't know. It's hard to tell. They look and feel quite the same. Like, these are maybe a size under, but these feel like extra jumbo, and these are just like jumbo, if that makes sense. I could be wrong, but they're just like a hair difference, similar to the next, where it's like just the tiniest differences that don't make a difference to me, but they might make a difference to you. Or what's in here. So we have a Floyd Rose 1500 in the Reaper C, and by what I was looking up, the Floyd Rose 1500 is specific to guitars that have them built in them. You actually can't buy it separately and then put it in your guitar like you can a Floyd Rose 1000 or a Special or one of those. So I thought that was interesting about this. And then this guitar has the Floyd Rose Special quote-unquote hot rod. And so what they did is they upgraded some of the components, which they look very similar, to be honest. The main differences is this: the Reaper has the Floyd Rose in it, and then the Sun Valley has Floyd Rose Special on it. I mean, they look the same besides the markings there. The Special feels fine. Like, playing them side by side, the 1500 does feel a little better. I'll give it that. And I know the Floyd Rose Specials have a bad reputation for like crapping out and having cheap plates. So there's some controversy there, but that gets me onto my next point, is these nuts. The nut on this one, for some reason, it creaks. And when I say creak, if I have it locked up and I go to do a dive bomb on it, I hear a little creak, and like as if the string's adjusting, even whenever it's cranked down and locked down. I'm not trying to strip the screws, so I'm not like hammering them down crazy hard, but I am locking it down. I have a few Floyd Rose guitars, and I know how to lock these nuts down. This one creaks for some reason. I've tried different orientations of how I have the nut bolts on there and different things, and it still creaks on me. So I'm not sure what the issue is there. So that's kind of like minus points for me, but they're taken back whenever I consider that this is a used guitar. And so it could have been a previous owner thing, and not everyone's 1500 may have that issue. And my hot rod here does not have that issue. So if I'm to be like very critiquey here, I feel like this guitar flutters just the tiniest bit better than that guitar. Dive bombs and everything, and that guitar flutters still. The Floyd Rose Special still flutters just fine. But this one just flutters a tiny bit longer, if that makes sense. That's really the Floyd Rose deep dive breakdown. They both have these pop-in bars, which is honestly really nice. So I don't have to worry about that, because I'm not a huge fan of the screw-ins, even the ones that like screw the nut to hold it in. I'm not a huge fan of that. So this was actually great because they stay where I want them. But on to the sustainiacs. The sustainiacs in these guitars are pretty much exactly the same. I mean, they are the same, except for how the electronics look in the guitar. And by what I mean by that is the three-way switch on this one is like a toggle, like Gibson style switch. And the three-way switch on the Reaper is more like your selector switch, like the blade switches that are traditional on most Strats. So that's just something to consider there. Other than that, the electronics work just about the same with the sustainiacs. The only difference is this one, because it has an active EMG, it has two battery ports, two 9-volt batteries, and the Reaper here only has one. So it kind of changes technically. Like, I feel a little more power from this one versus this, and I can change the pickup height of the sustainiac to change how much power I want driving these strings. So it's not a huge deal, but what I'll probably end up doing is wiring the sustainiac in the EMG separately in this guitar, so that way I get like dedicated power and a dedicated battery to each of the units. So that way they're not relying on each other. Because I covered it in my last video with this guitar, but they're in like a weird series parallel format. So not the greatest. Something to consider is that you have 2 batteries on this one to change out, and you have only 1 battery, 9-volt battery, to change out on this one. So the other thing is, since we're talking about pickups and batteries, this one has the EMG Retroactive Hot 70, and I mean, I like it. I think it's a pretty hot pickup, but is it better than an active? I don't really think so. I think it's like really hot and gives you metal. Like I'm for what I'm playing, I don't think it super matters. I play a lot of metal on these guitars, and I can achieve metal on both of these guitars. This one is called the Diamond Decimator. It's a Schecter pickup, and it's passive, and it sounds pretty good. It doesn't blow me away for what a $1,200 guitar has in it. It doesn't blow me away and be like, man, that's amazing. But it does everything. So, there's nothing too bad about it. And then the last thing I'll kind of mention about these guitars is that both have, since they both have sustainiacs, they do have a 3-way selector switch, but they're actually fake. And by what I mean by fake is that they fake the neck pickup here on both of these guitars. So whenever you switch it over to the neck here, what it's actually doing is there's in the circuit in the sustainiac on this, you're changing. It's just putting an EQ on it and then changing it to sound like a more middle position using only the bridge pickup, and then a neck position EQ on the bridge here. So that's kind of a downside of owning these guitars, is that you don't actually get a neck sound. But if you're like me and you play a lot of metal, you're probably not really using the neck much, so having it be able to ring out like this is kind of tight. And yeah, just something worth noting. Both of these guitars do that, and because of that, the neck positions and middle positions on both of these guitars sound different. So if we're going over differences, we'll go over truss rod covers. So this one has a traditional truss rod cover at the top. Well, it's not that traditional, I guess. But it has that truss rod and cover at the top like a lot of guitars have commonly. But now this one has more of a modern feel, where it has the truss rod cover at the heel of the neck, which I like more. Makes it way easier for adjusting that. And I think it looks tight. I think it looks really cool seeing it there. And you get a clean headstock at the top, which is really, really cool. So I like that a lot more. I don't have to fiddle with taking off the truss rod cover and trying to get in there. That's like my least favorite thing to do. So this is way easier to adjust the truss rod cover on, or truss rod adjustment on. Both of these guitars have the same Schecter tuners, and they both have the same input jack. So you're not really missing anything there. So both of these guitars have neck dive, and what I mean by that is if I'm having the guitar here on my lap without a strap, it just falls forward. And same thing with this one. So it's, something to consider if you're looking at these guitars. I'm okay with it because I usually play with a strap on or I stand up, so it really doesn't bother me. The other thing I thought I'd point out is both have brass blocks in the tremolo. I mean, that one has the cover on it still, but this one, it looks the same underneath it on the Sun Valley Super Shredder, but both of them have brass blocks. Okay, so I'll go over the last few different specs here with these guitars that are kind of the reason why I've been on the hunt for the Sun Valley Super Shredder for so long. So, the edges of these guitars, and this is not something that a lot of people talk about, but this has contoured edges in terms of, like, you can see it here how they did the finish, where it's a contoured edge there, but this is actually pretty flat. It has some rounding over to it, but it's a flat top, and then that contoured arm rests there. And then the back is also a similar thing where they have contours, like a belly carve and and then really nice hand access carved there. So it's nice, like playing this, and I'm not a huge fan of the flat top style, Strat style guitars. So this one actually has rounded edges on it, and it has the same cuts as the other one, so it has a belly carve, and then it has a little hand contour for higher fret access. But this one just feels like nice, you know? It's just something, whenever I got my pink Strat, which you guys have seen on this channel, the work in progress Strat, which is being currently worked on right now. I'm working on that. But whenever I got that, that was my first real Stratocaster guitar. I had a Yamaha as my first one, but that was so long ago. I don't even remember it. That was my first electric guitar, and I can't find it. So, but whenever I got the pink Strat, it made me realize how comfortable these rounded edges are, and I was like, dang, that's really nice. So whenever I saw the Sun Valley Super Shredders had these, I really wanted to try this. The other things to notice, difference-wise, and then I'll kind of get into why I have two of these guitars, if you want to hear that story, but finishes. So this one has a satin finish all the way up the neck too, so it's the same finish on the neck, and this one has like a matte finish, which I'm actually really surprised at how well this does not absorb fingerprints. Being matte black, that's usually a lot of people's biggest gripes with these guitars, with any kind of matte black guitar, is like how many fingerprints they absorb, and this is like pretty low. So not saying that I couldn't rub it off, or you have that little like matted pinky rub thing there from like whenever you chug and stuff, but anyway, yeah, the finishes, and then it has like a satin feeling neck, so they have roughly the same. This one feels more like, or less, it feels less finished, which is, you know, more natural and feels nice, so something to consider. And then the last thing I'll mention is the headstocks. So this is a reverse headstock. The Reaper has a reverse headstock, and this has a normal headstock, and I am more of a fan of the normal headstock. Just because the reverse, you stretch out that low E and you get a ton of like ringing, and you have to mute it and stuff, like put some muting stuff behind it. Not saying that you don't have to do that to this one, but most people find that that's an issue with these reverse headstock guitars. And I just like the traditional look and the convenience of the tuners being on top. So that's pretty much it for these. I'll go into a quick story on why I have both of these guitars. I got this Reaper in a trade. I traded out one of my guitars for it. If you've been on the channel or seen it for a while, seen my channel for a while, it's that Firefly. I traded that out for this guitar and some extra cash on top. And it was honestly a really good deal. It worked out really nicely that he was willing to trade for this. So it was pretty great. He didn't want Strat style guitars, which I don't consider this Strat style. It's like, some call it Super Strat. I don't know. That's a topic for another video. But he just didn't like this S style guitar, which still stands for Strat. But he likes Les Paul, so he was cool with the trade and some cash, and that worked for me. But I got this guitar because I really wanted to do a comparison, which I've made for a video for that one, where I compare two like Super Shredder Strat style guitars. And I got this because I couldn't find a Sun Valley for a good price that I could afford. And I was about ready to make that video, but it just kind of felt weird, and I was like, man, this isn't 100% accurate. So then I ended up finding this guitar on Facebook Marketplace and was able to trade the guy a computer and a little extra cash, and I got this one. So that actually worked out really nicely. So I was able to make the video with two Strat type of guitars, and actually have a genuine one here. And so the thing I really like about this is I just love the Strat look, and like I said, the curved edges, but the pick guard is what makes it like a Super Strat. You know, it's got 24 frets, it's got a floating bridge, and it's got a pick guard. I know that's like, not a lot of people will be like, that doesn't define, and also of course the shape, but you know, not a lot of people would say that the pick guard makes it a Super Strat, but in my mind, and I'm probably wrong, and it's okay if you can correct me in the comments, but I like to say that if it has a pick guard, like in this traditional Strat style, and it's got 24 frets and a floating bridge. I like to say it's a super Strat because it's kind of super, you know? It's everything that a Strat is and a little more. So that's how I got these two guitars. And now I'll stop boring you with stories and get on to the fun part of playing them.